baby, it's time to ride the funk train. This is Funkmaster V here. And we're going to be talking about the Atari 50th anniversary celebration. It's not even a collection, it's a celebration. If you think this is just another one of those Atari cash grabs, another one of the flashback systems that you see at the Goodwill and the CVS and Dollar General or whatnot, if you think it's another one of these tired compilations that they release year in and year out for the modern systems or computers, this is not that at all. This is something totally different. And if you have any love in your heart for Atari or for old video games, you're going to be riding the funk train. Let's get it started because it's going to be funky up in here. Hola, child. It's time for Funkmaster V's Getting Hip with the Atari 7800, where Funkmaster V, musician, ghost hunter, hat flipper, pro wrestler, and comedian, takes you on a tour of all things cool about the Atari 7800. Are you ready to get your groove on? Because it's about to get funky up in here.
One, two, three, bass.
Let's just get into this thing, man. Let's just get into it. I've been looking forward to this thing for months. But when I first heard of this Atari 50th anniversary celebration, I was like, dude, this is just another retread. I'm going to buy Miss Pac-Man and Adventure for the 99th time. But no! Digital Eclipse put their heart, their soul, love, and the funk into this collection. Because not only is this just a collection of games, which it is, and there's tons of games. There's 103 games in this damn thing. But this is an interactive documentary. That's the best way I've heard it put. Because you can take your time. It's almost like a museum. Because this isn't just about Atari. This is about video games. Atari invented Silicon Valley. I mean, Steve Jobs came from here. Atari came up with so many concepts and so many innovations. When you go through this thing, it'll blow your hair back. Now, is this package perfect? Is this thing 100% gold? It's about 97% gold. There's some things here that aren't perfect, but let's not dwell on the negative. Young traveler, wayfaring video gamist. Let's dive into what makes this thing sing. I think what sticks out to me the most is this amazing and beautiful interface, man. You can go through this museum, this quote-unquote interactive documentary with ease, but also you can sort the games in any number of ways. By platform, by chronological order, that type of thing. Also, each game features some really neat extras, like you could put filters on that make it look like an old CRT TV, or you put the bezel around the arcade screens. Really cool. If I got you licking your chops, you can see this thing is available on Steam, Switch, PS4 and 5, the Xbox Jive, and even Atari VCS. The whole shebang. First things first, Digital Eclipse made 6 brand new video games that were either reimaginings of old games or stuff that was influenced by Atari. Leading off the entire celebration is Haunted Houses, which is a reimagining of the old Atari 2600 game Haunted House. This was considered the first ever survival horror game. It's 3D, there's a lot of gameplay elements to this, different types of houses, and a really kick-butt tutorial, which makes this a lot easier to get into than the original game. They have Quadratank, which is a new take on Tank, the old arcade game, and Combat. There's a lot of options with this. You can have, I think, up to 4 people play this in couch mode. Lots of different types of gameplay elements. You can capture the flag, all that kind of fun stuff too. They came out with Touch Me, which is the original version of Simon. Sounds like something a senator would say to an intern. They also drummed up Neo Breakout, which is a take on Super Breakout and Breakout. It's a fun ball and bat game. Cool 2-player option on this guy. They have a new paint job on Yar's Revenge. It's still Yar's Revenge, but it just looks like something you'd see in heaven if there was video games in heaven. My favorite new game they did was something called Vector Sector. This game is a love letter to vector graphics. Atari was awesome. They were one of the innovators of vector graphics. Their best games back in the 80s and the late 70s were vector graphic games, and I think these games look great today. Vector Sector takes gameplay elements from Space Duel, Asteroids, Lunar Lander, Tempest, and really like Road Blasters and Gravatar and some of the other, Battlezone almost, and they kind of combine all these together to make this unbelievable game. And I'm going to tell you right now, Vector Sector, if you're an old head like me, is worth the price of admission alone. Another attribute of this collection I think is great is they actually built from the ground up an emulator for the Atari Jaguar. The Atari Jaguar was a tuned system, but people are so curious about it because the emulation has been dismal. There's no emulation for this system, and they actually took the time to make an emulator to make Jaguar games available for you here. I think there's over a handful. I think there's almost 10% of the library is represented, and there's hit and miss here. I mean, Jaguar games were really weird. They looked really weird. The system purported that it was 64-bit. It was not 64-bit. However, there are some games here that are pretty good, including Tempest 2000. That's the belle of the ball. Ruiner Pinball, I like. Atari Karts is fun. Games like Fight for Life and Club Drive. Good God, those are stinkers. But what are you going to do? You get to at least live on the wild side a little bit. They have Lynx games. They have a handful of Atari 7800 games. They have a bunch of Atari 2600 games. They do have 5200 games. That's another system that you don't really get to see in emulation very much because the controllers are so strange. There's not a lot of Atari 5200 games, and that's a darn shame. There's a handful, but one of the best ones is the Primo version of Star Raiders. This almost was marketed as The Last Starfighter, but who are they kidding? What a great game this is, and you won't believe the implementation into this collection of the Atari 5200 Star Raiders. They did some special things. Check it out. You'll get a kick out of it. Make sure you leave the borders on around the TV set. Leave that option on for Primo enjoyment. Another cool thing is they have a section about the PCs, which is where Atari was heading into after the Trammels bought it from Warner Brothers. And there's actually a homebrew called Yomp or Yump. That is an old Atari 800 homebrew. Well, it's not old, it's from 2007, but that's pretty cool too. The belle of the ball as far as this selection of games has to be the arcade games. This has most of the arcade games that made Atari great. People will probably be scratching their head on some omissions. There was a lot of licensing issues. Warner Brother owns a lot of the library now. Atari's been bought and sold a few times, so there's things like Star Wars the Arcade Game, Paperboy, Tetris, Klax, Road Blasters, Vindicators, APB, Rampart, Marble Madness, San Francisco Rush, Pole Position 1 and 2, Battlezone. There's a lot of glaring omissions here, and you're like, wow, why were these games not included? It's probably because there's a legal situation going on. So I operate a very large Atari 7800 centric website called Atari7800forever.com, and I would be remiss if I didn't say I feel like the 7800 got jilted a little bit, and I'm confused on some of the omissions from that library. Seemingly Atari-owned licenses like Alien Brigade, Desert Falcon, Midnight Mutants didn't make the cut, and that's a little strange to me. Not a lot of love in this collection for the 7800. But guys, we're used to that, aren't we? You want more proof that Digital Eclipse hearts Atari? How about this? They've hidden 5 games in the collection for you to find. And it's not easy. They have clues, but these clues are pretty tough. They're kind of like Yoda-centric riddles. But if you stumble across some of these things, you'll be surprised with a hidden game. I could go on and on and on about this thing all night long. You just need to play it. You need to buy it. You need to support Atari. You need to support digital Eclipse. Send their children through college. They deserve it. This was an awesome project. Not everything is perfect. Some of the control schemes, the Xbox controller is probably the best video game controller in the world. However, it doesn't translate perfectly to games like Crystal Castles with the trackball, Major Havoc with the spinner, or like Warlords with the paddle control. It's just not perfect. And if you're somebody who's kind of like an enthusiast and you want the arcade experience, it's going to suffer in those games. Games that have mainly joystick or button controls, you're going to be fine. There are some workarounds with that. Atari makes a brand new controller that looks like the old Atari 2600 controller. And the cool thing about it is the stick itself actually spins left and right like a paddle controller. So if you want to drop some coin on that, you can get that Atari joystick from their website, atari.com, and use that, and that will make the spinner type games a little bit easier to deal with. And another thing that kind of is disappointing, and this is actually kind of a big letdown, is there's no online high score tables, man. What? So there's no leaderboards, or there's no way to see if your really good run in game X is actually something to be proud of, or if you're just a jabron that got lucky for a moment. I think that's a little disappointing. And there's some games, I know I was playing Atari 7800 games and Atari 2600 games, and they didn't keep your score. I thought, wow, I thought that would be one of the things they would do, is you had a really good run and you could always go back and look at it. That's not the case. But other than that, this is cherry. Go buy it, shut up, slap your mom, get the hand out of the front of your pants, and go save the world, dudes. We need some heroes. Thanks for watching, and hey, if you're an Atari 7800 fan, by all means, check out my website, Atari7800forever.com. We review every Atari 7800 game there is, and sometimes we do videos like this too, because we're beautiful people.